Now to major developments this morning in our fight against COVID and the Omicron variant. Jane Halton is the chair of the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and she joins us now from Canberra. Jane, good morning to you. Can we begin with the outbreak affecting Sydney? Two major clusters at this stage. Has the horse bolted with Omicron?
Well, I think Omicron's here, we know that, and we know it's highly, highly infectious. So, yes, we expect probably Omicron will replace Delta as the dominant variant, and it's arrived, and we're now seeing it spreading, not just in Sydney, but elsewhere. So, yes, I think the horse has bolted.
We also have cases in Melbourne, Brisbane recording a world first variation of Omicron. If that's true, what does that mean?
So what happens with this virus is it continues to mutate, and there are thousands of variants that we're seeing right around the world, and we're creating a big scientific information base. We know that not all of those variants are variants of concern, but clearly something which is associated with Omicron is something we'll watch quite carefully. So good on the scientists in Queensland who've identified this variant. It has different mutations, particularly on the spike protein. It's not something particularly that we should worry about right now, but obviously people will keep an eye on it.
There are some hopeful assessments coming from the World Health Organization this morning. What does the latest data tell us about the severity of the Omicron variant?
You're right. What we're looking at now is early evidence about whether this particular variant brings with it severe disease and death. And it's still very early, so we all need to remember we don't have a lot of data yet, but it certainly doesn't look like this is going to cause lots of severe disease and death. That's great if it's true, but it's still early days. WHO is optimistic, so I think we should all be optimistic.
Okay, tell us if you can about these early indications that Pfizer may be up to 40 times less effective against Omicron, but with a third dose, it's efficient?
Yeah, so again, we have early data. There's one study that's just been published, or in the process of being published, that looks at how effective, particularly the Pfizer vaccine is after 2 doses in respect of the Omicron variant. And what it's suggesting is that we might see a reduced efficacy when it comes to preventing infection. Now, that doesn't mean that it isn't going to give us protection against illness or death, and we're hopeful that we're still going to get that protection, but it's still early days. Now, the other thing we've seen is evidence, or the beginnings of evidence, that actually if you have your third dose, that booster dose, that is going to significantly improve your protection against this variant. So yesterday we heard a lot of our health ministers out saying, go out and get your variant. You can your vaccine, your booster vaccine, if you've had your 2 shots, or your vaccine, and you can tell whether your 6 months is up by looking at your vaccine certificate. It'll tell you the date of your second shot, and then you can figure out when the third dose, your booster, is due.
Should we be bringing that forward to 5 months after your second shot, or are you still satisfied that 6 months is sufficient?
Again, we don't really have quite enough evidence yet. So actually, the government has asked ATAGI, we all know how important they've been through the pandemic, to have a look at this. And so far they've said not enough evidence, but there's no doubt in my mind that they'll be watching this really closely. If there is sufficient evidence that we should bring forward that booster, there's no doubt in my mind that that's what they'll say. Right this minute, they're saying let's stick with 6 months. So again, as soon as your booster is due, and we've already seen hundreds of thousands of people go and have their booster, that's great. But if your booster's due, go and get it. If you haven't been fully vaccinated yet, please make sure that you get fully vaccinated, because that is better than not being vaccinated.
Okay, Jane Halton, we appreciate the update. Thank you. Well, in just 4 days, Queensland's border will come down in time to reunite families for Christmas. And while it's cause for celebration for many, it has left health authorities concerned over how the state's emergency departments will cope if a COVID outbreak occurs. For more, we're joined by AMA Queensland Ramping Roundtable Chair, Dr Kim Hansen from Brisbane. Doctor, good morning to you. How prepared are Queensland hospitals for the reopening on Monday?
Good morning, Sylvia. Well, it's fair to say we're worried about the situation here. Our hospitals are full without COVID cases, and we really feel that the preparation has happened, but we wish there could have been some more preparation, some more space in our hospitals for the patients.
And how have you reacted to news this morning that a world first form of the Omicron variant has been detected in Queensland? What does that mean for you?
Oh, this pandemic just keeps on giving. It just keeps giving us more and more scares, doesn't it? And we don't know much about Omicron yet. We know it's more contagious. We hope it's not as severe as Delta. We just need to wait for the authorities to do further tests and get more information as time goes on. But it just puts us on edge again.
A group of Queensland doctors wants urgent action to fix ramping and bed block in the state's public health system. What are you calling for? How bad is it?
It's the worst we've ever seen over decades. Patients have never waited so long in emergency departments. They've never been ramped on ambulances for so long. We've never seen our patients suffer like this. So a group of doctors have got together to advocate for our patients and try and force the government into more action, more funding, so that we can care for them to the best of our ability. But we can only do that when there's beds available in the hospitals.
Well, that's frightening for Queenslanders to hear, on the verge of, reopening the border and allowing Omicron into the state. What exactly do you need from the government?
So there's no doubt we need more beds. We've been chronically underfunded, like a lot of areas, for years and years, decades really. But we also need leadership, we need innovation, as well as the investment. We need to use our beds as efficiently as possible. We need to have space in our hospitals every day. We need to be discharging patients 7 days a week. And we need to get better at devising models where patients don't have to come to the emergency department to get hospital care, or they don't have to be in a hospital bed to get hospital care.
Is the state government letting Queenslanders down on this front?
I think we've all been working hard over the pandemic to prepare, but we as a group are worried that we're not really where we'd like to be, given that the borders are opening on Monday.
OK. We'll leave it there for now. We appreciate your time this morning, and let's hope that there is some action on that front, because it's just desperately needed. Dr. Kim Hansen, thank you very much for your time this morning.